Hello, everyone, and welcome to Lush and Salty Aquariums. My name is Stefan. Thank you for coming to my channel. Holy moly, folks, a lot can happen in 2 or 3 weeks, especially in this hobby, especially in a heavily planted aquarium, such as the one we're looking at here. This is the tank that is front and center in my fish room. In other words, it's where a TV would be versus where I usually sit, which is now occupied by Elmo and my computer and a jacket I do not need with the high temperatures of the summer. So back to this aquarium. It's a thing of beauty, I must say, but you know, too much is too much, and I'm reaching that point when it comes to some of these plants. I hate pruning. I hate cutting plants. I didn't like it in my terrestrial garden over time, but you know, you just do it. You gotta do it, and the plants generally respond like gangbusters. So I know that's gonna happen. It's just, you know, you watch the plant, and let's look at this Bopa. You see how it's starting to cascade that way? It is just well over a foot, like 14 inches of growth, and all of it's healthy, but to maintain the organized chaos of this aquascape, I'm thinking I'm gonna have to trim it somewhere around in there so we can see through to all the super red Ludwigia, the mini there, that also is reaching the top in some cases. Now, I've already trimmed a lot of it, and I did some topping, which is a technique where you don't really plant the tops, that you trim all the way down into the substrate, but rather just use your tweezers, your forceps, whatever they're called, and push it down in a timely spot, an appropriate spot, I should say. Timely, what does time have to do with it? And take it from there. You can see, though, that way down here with this plant is not a thing of beauty. It's more or less just rootstocks and naked stems, and that happens. And ultimately, the way hobbyists deal with it is they just take the nice tops at some point and pull them all out, just pull the whole plant out and take the nice tops and replant them into the substrate. With the Bopa, I could do that, but you can see even way down here, there is no problematic growth. So I could essentially cut anywhere. Now, that doesn't mean there isn't things to consider. The issue with stem plants, and it's a blessing and a curse, is in everyone that I know of, and there might be an exception, but I don't know what it is, when you cut the stem, 2 plants are going to come from that, and that can be a blessing if you're trying to cultivate more and more plants, or if you want to get a bushy look, similar to what would be accomplished by the topping technique. It would organically happen for you. The issue, especially with something like this Bopa, is those 2 stems would look weird and unnatural coming from one parent stem down here if you saw it that way. Now, if it's scaped, if your tank is aquascaped in such a fashion where maybe the lower portion is blocked by wood or rock, then yeah, the top portion could come up and just be exponentially, you know, doubled every time, and that would be cool. But generally, I'm seeing the stalks here, so I have to decide whether I want to just cut the tops and replace the bottom plant, or cut the tops and let the bottom plant double itself and put these cuttings somewhere else in the fish room. That would be an easy choice. I just don't have somewhere else in the fish room to put them in a comfortable spot. This must sound familiar to some of you, and if it does, by all means, let me know what you do with your tops. I do bring some to the LFS when I get a nice group, and I'll give them to my guys there to cultivate our relationship and instill goodwill. And sometimes I trade if they're amenable, if they're willing to do that. So the camera cannot help but see this bodacious red tiger lotus. And you can see there's actually the cave portion of my aquascape down there going through to the back of the aquarium. I do have to cut these big leaves. I'm not as worried about them coming to the top as I am just becoming too dominant. I think it looks absolutely terrific right this second as I do the Bopa, but in a week it will be too robust. The leaves will start to, if they haven't already, start to take away too much light from even these low light cryptocorns that you can see they're doing reasonably well down there. And there's some sturgeon repens, that's what that is right there, and some crypts down in the back, crypt parva, and maybe some other common crypts that are just not growing very big, like that guy. I'm sure some of that green is colonized off of that guy or that guy, and because of this guy, it can't grow bigger, which I'm okay with because I like having some see-through, and I'm sure the fish appreciate it too, having that tunnel. But nevertheless, I couldn't decide which leaf to cut here. I mean, this big honker seems like the obvious pick, and then I would hope that the two to the left and right would more or less move up and replace it and kind of narrow the whole impact of the plant in the aquarium. You can see I've also put some tops, little teeny tops. That's the super red there, and some of it here, showing different colors from green to yellow to red, but it's growing up, and there's something kind of chaotic and wonderful about using it in the front with the sturgeon repens and some other plants in lieu of a carpet, or in lieu of nothing. Now, nothing in a carpet, either of those two options would be cool here, and I've had either of those two options, but over time, especially with things like this tiger lotus, the carpet sort of went away, the hair grass went away. This is Blixa japonica. It's doing okay. It wants higher light maybe than what this tall tank can give it, even with a great twin star light, which is clearly doing a terrific job in general. But when you get all the way down on a tall tank, I'm not sure the inches, but it's at least a few more inches taller than a typical 20 gallon, so like a 22.5 gallon. The Blixa japonica doesn't do as great as it does in some of my other aquariums. I've got some cryptocorn balancea right at the corner here. It's doing wonderful. God, I love this plant. Look at how beautiful that is. Look at that leaf. So awesome. And if we pull back, you can see how the Bacopa on the right and the crypt balancea on the left frame the tank, and that's what I like. And it's getting a little out of hand on this side for sure. In the back, I already talked about the super red mini. This is Ludwigia. It's either the ovalis or just repens. It was sold to me as repens, but viewers have told me for various reasons it could be the ovalis, and it's doing really, really good. But here we go. Look, it's flopped over, and it's the same thing I talked about already. Cut, do a topping technique, but there's just not a lot of real estate to cram more plants back there. They need some air in between this particular plant, or these medium height and especially lower height leaves will start dying en masse, and that's not sightly. So I got to decide what to do with the tops. Nature's already decided in some respects they're growing out of the water, and they could be fine that way, but they will flop. They won't grow absolutely vertical, especially with all that height, to create a wobbly effect. Maybe if it was a shallow tank, you would get some erect out of the tank growth, but here I think it would just be sort of drooping over and negating the light and the overall aesthetic of the aquarium. You can see down there begging, there we go. There's epiphytes, anubias, primarily different kinds, and you see some Christmas moss in there as well. Now to the left, I've got Limonphilia hyperoides, I believe this plant is called here. And ideally it would have more of that pink or red. I'm surprised it isn't throwing that color better here. That's a mild disappointment. It does so in another tank of mine. And I've got some Rotala, I think that was either, I forget the exact species. It's nothing remarkable. Let's see what we got here. There's a top, see this particulate here was doing just fine floating. I'm sure what I had done is used it as a topping, as I talked about over here with this plant, and just pushed it down. But sometimes when you do that technique, it just comes free because it's not in the substrate. So I can go ahead and replant that somewhere in that jumble combination of Rotala and the Limonphilia hyperoides, begging the pronunciation. I've got a really cool magnetized rack here with some absolutely perfect condition Christmas moss. That is just as good as that will ever look. And the only reason I did that is because I had those nifty little racks. There is some vertical space that I could play with. And when I pulled the moss, I had a great clump of healthy Christmas moss is what I think that is. And I applied it to these racks versus throwing it out or keeping it in a bucket. My fish room is not conducive to bucket of plants waiting. It's not in my basement. As I've said time and time again, it's in the center of my apartment that obviously I live in with my family. And so I can only have so many temporary housing arrangements in the fish room. It needs to look lovely, right? Like the way this might, on a good day, I think my wife might think about it as well. It's like he has all these really exotic gardens and flowers that he's keeping, terrariums, and versus the profound ecosystems that we all know a planted aquarium can become, and this one is certainly one of those. It's funny, indicative of this, the first 10 minutes have all been about the plants, and I haven't even talked about the fish. That's just because my passion has been moving to plants, or I've been trying to think about plants and researching aquarium plants more than fish, and so it's top of my mind, and that's why I haven't even discussed these lovely, lovely creatures. I can't have an aquarium without fish, and I have plenty of fish. I overstock by design because I have so many plants, and their bio load will not become an issue, knock on wood. At least it hasn't so far. If anything, it's contributing to this explosive plant growth as much as the CO2 and the light. We've got black phantom tetras. There's a dominant male in here with that high fin, and the females show more color, but their dorsal fins aren't as pronounced as like this guy. And I've seen these with even bigger, more bodacious, that's the word of the day, more bodacious dorsal fins than these. What a great, albeit common fish. There is a rummy nose rasbora. There's a couple of them. I'm not seeing as great a color on those as of late, but then these fish are getting into the third year of when I put them in, so that could be a function of just the fish aging out, losing some of its youthful vigor. I don't think it's a problem like with rummy nose tetras. When they lose their red nose, it's an issue. It's a canary in a coal mine, and you have to be mindful of what could be causing that. I'm not saying that these rummy nose rasboras are perfect in that I, shouldn't keep an eye on their coloration. I have seen them more like that guy there than that guy there. And that's a female, by the way, and they're always drab in comparison. There's a little pygmy Coreodora, or yep, that's what that is. And I also got Otocinclus in here, perhaps a few Nereids. Among the other fish in this aquarium are the fabulous, inexpensive lamb chop or pork chop rasbora. I've heard it called both, or the SB rasbora. Even that name is used a lot. What a great fish for a few dollars a piece. Get as many as you can. They're smaller than the Harlequin rasbora, and they have that bronze sheen, and the Harlequin rasbora cannot compete on that lone criteria, that bronze sheen. It's almost like these are Art Deco jewels. That's what I used to call them when our girls were living with us, and one of them listened to Elena Del Rey song that was called You're So Art Deco or something like that, and I explained what Art Deco was to her, and I used these fish as an example. Their geometry, their color, brass, black, all feel like the Art Deco period in architecture and art itself. And you get all that in a fish that now costs about $3, $3 or $4 each, depending on how many you get and where you get them. In this aquarium are also some ember tetras, a super common, delightful little fish. There's a chubby female right there, and there's another below her. If this tank were way, way smaller, I could still have a ton of those in a planted nano tank. No fish in here is at all rare or expensive, and they all are easy to find, easy to source, and they get along famously. And you can see it's a great kaleidoscope of activity. No fish favors one area of the aquarium more than the other. And when I had two small angelfish that grew into big angelfish, all these smaller schooling fish had to choose territories and protect it and themselves from the ever-growing cichlids. When I took the angelfish out, and by the way, both of them are doing fine in their new home, which I'll do a video about in the coming days. But as soon as I took them out, all these schooling fish just found their happy place, and that was why I took them out. They were okay. They had a coping strategy, and there was enough hiding places. But I was sensitive to the fact that they weren't able to live their best life, constantly being vigilant for these two angels, two angelfish, two cichlids that had gone from tiny, dime size, and they were at the $50 size, which is what breeders, that's the metaphor they use to describe their size, and it only refers to the body. Obviously, their fins are way bigger than that, so a dime or a quarter size angelfish is way bigger than a dime or a quarter. It's just a portion of their body. So, another tangent, I apologize. Let me highlight, you see, look at how great that Christmas moss, and I pull so much of it. As a matter of fact, that's where this came from, right? That great looking ledge of moss, all I do is cut, or you know what, honestly, I just put my fingers in there and pull out those strands and clumps with my two fingers, my forefinger and my thumb, gather a group of it, and then tie it up on a thread on those nifty racks. I could put them on a rock, I could do all sorts of things, but nothing has delivered the results like these racks do. Where do you get them? Just search eBay or Amazon for moss racks or pothos holder. That there's a whole bunch of cool creators who've made these things and sell them inexpensively. I like the magnet ones, but you can get them with suction cups. But I feel like when the moss gets really heavy and a mono shrimp jump on it, the suction cups are not forever, and a magnet is way more. I don't know that they lose their powers ever. I'm sure they do, but I like the magnets. All right, everybody. I don't know. Next time I film this, I will have most certainly cut down the Bacopa, and one of these leaves, I think, from the dwarf tiger lotus. Since they don't want to go up, they just seem to want to get bigger and bigger, like tea plates. Hey, there's the panda corridors. I didn't mention them. I have a fairly sizable group. And by the way, there's a red Rilly shrimp. How cool is that? I don't even remember putting that species in here. It could be a natural, it could be naturally produced from the Bloody Mary and some other Neocaridina in here. But you saw the white saddle and the red trim, so very lovely. Okay, folks, I'd love to hear from you, and share your experiences as well as I'm sharing mine. But for now, always keep your hands in the tank, albeit carefully, and ciao for now.